Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we journey into the world of Viking life. A world far richer, stranger, and more surprising than the old image of raiders with axes and ships. These were sailors who crossed open oceans in wooden vessels, traders who carried silver from distant Islamic markets, and farmers who wrestled survival from long northern winters. Their ships reached rivers, islands, kingdoms, and even the edge of North America. Their stories traveled just as far, carried through poems, sagas, carved runes, and memories passed from firelight to firelight. Viking life was built from danger, skill, law, trade, family, belief, and ambition. It was a world where a sword could have a name, a sail could take years to make, and a single voyage could change the fate of whole communities. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your breathing to slow. And as the day begins to loosen its grip, join me as we explore this fascinating Viking world together. Let's begin. Vikings reached North America centuries before Columbus crossed the Atlantic. Long before later, European voyages redrew the world map. Norse sailors pushed westward across the North Atlantic in stages. They did not leap blindly into the unknown. They moved from Norway to the Northern Islands, then to Iceland, Greenland, and finally to a distant shore they called Vinland. Archaeology has confirmed a Norse settlement at Lansel Meadows in Newfoundland, where turf buildings, ironworking, and boat repair show that real people lived and worked there for a time. Imagine the sight of those crews arriving at a coast unlike any they had known, with unfamiliar forests, new waters, and the strange feeling of having reached the edge of their world. Their stay was not permanent, but it was extraordinary. It reveals a society capable of long-distance planning, risky seamanship, and adaptation across icy seas. The story is not simply about discovery. It is about how far human courage can travel when guided by skill and hunger for new horizons. Most Vikings were farmers first, and raiders only sometimes. The popular image begins with a warrior, but ordinary life more often began with soil. Across Scandinavia and the Norse settlements, people had to grow food, manage animals, repair buildings, cut hay, preserve supplies, and prepare for winter. Raiding could bring wealth, but farming kept a household alive. A person might sail in summer and return to harvest in autumn. Another might never raid at all, yet still live inside the world we now call Viking. Farms were small centers of production where families made clothing, tools, food, and trade goods. The rhythm of the year mattered deeply. Lambing, planting, fishing, haymaking, and slaughter all had their place. This makes the Viking story more interesting, not less. It shows that the famous voyages were built on everyday labor. Behind every longship stood people spinning wool, tending cattle, shaping wood, and watching the weather. The dramatic moments survived in chronicles, but the backbone of the age was patient work on land. Viking women could own property and demand divorce. Norse society was not equal in a modern sense, but women in many communities held legal and economic powers that surprise people today. A free woman could manage a farm, inherit goods, control household keys, and sometimes act with striking independence while men were away. The keys themselves became symbols of authority, because the home was not a private retreat so much as an economic engine. It stored food, textiles, tools, valuables, and family honor. Divorce was also possible under certain conditions, and a woman could initiate it publicly before witnesses. That alone tells us something important. Marriage was a legal bond with rules, property, and obligations, not only a private romance. Some graves reveal women buried with rich goods, wagons, or equipment that suggests influence and status. The sagas also preserve women who argue, negotiate, provoke revenge, or guide family decisions. They shaped households, memory, and power. Viking homes were smoky halls shared with animals and servants. A Norse longhouse could feel crowded, practical, and alive with constant activity. The hearth burned at the center, giving warmth and light, but smoke often drifted upward through roof openings rather than vanishing cleanly. The air may have smelled of wood, wool, cooking, damp earth, animals, and stored food. People slept along raised benches at the sides, worked indoors during bad weather, repaired tools, prepared meals, and told stories after dark. In some homes, animals were kept in a section of the building, especially during cold seasons. That arrangement protected valuable livestock and added warmth, though it also brought noise and smell. Servants and enslaved people could live and work within the same household, making the home a place of hierarchy as well as family. There was little privacy by modern standards. Daily life unfolded in shared space under one roof, with status visible in seating, possessions, and duties. The hall was not just a building. It was the working heart of society. Norse explorers crossed from Scandinavia to Baghdad and beyond. The Viking world was not confined to cold northern seas. Through rivers and trade routes, Scandinavians reached deep into Eastern Europe and connected with the wealthy markets of the Islamic world. Silver coins from faraway mints have been found across Scandinavia, proof that goods and money moved across astonishing distances. Some Norse travelers followed river systems toward the Black Sea and the Caspian, meeting Slavic, Byzantine, Turkic, and Arab communities along the way. They carried furs, amber, swords, and other goods, then returned with silver, silk, spices, and stories. To imagine Viking life only as coastal raiding is to miss this enormous eastern dimension. These were people who could shift from sailor to merchant, from fighter to negotiator, from guest to stranger, in cities filled with languages they did not speak. Baghdad itself stood as one of the great centers of learning and wealth. The Norse connection to such places reveals a medieval world more connected than many of us imagine. Viking ships could glide through oceans and shallow rivers alike. The genius of Norse shipbuilding was not just speed, but versatility. Their vessels could cross rough seas, then slip into narrow rivers where heavier ships could never follow. A shallow draft allowed them to approach beaches, estuaries, and inland settlements with startling ease. This meant a crew could appear from the horizon, row up a winding river, and reach places that thought themselves safely distant from the coast. The same design also served traders, settlers, messengers, and explorers. Overlapping planks gave the hull strength while keeping it flexible, so the vessel could move with the water rather than fight against it. Sails caught the wind on open routes, while oars gave control when currents narrowed. To people watching from shore, such ships must have seemed almost alive. They were not floating fortresses. They were light, clever machines built from wood, iron, wool, and generations of practical knowledge. In many ways, they were the engine of the Viking Age. A Viking longship could be carried across land by its crew. Some Norse vessels were light enough to be dragged, rolled, or hauled between waterways when the route demanded it. This ability changed what travel could mean. A ship was not always trapped by the shoreline. With enough hands, planning, and effort, a crew could move from one river system to another, bypass obstacles, or continue a journey where water briefly ended. This made long-distance movement through Eastern Europe especially powerful, where rivers served as highways but did not always connect neatly. The work must have been exhausting. Men would have unloaded cargo, secured the hull, and used logs or sledges to shift the vessel over difficult ground. Yet the reward was enormous. It turned geography into something negotiable. Hills, shallows, and divides became problems to solve rather than final barriers. That practical flexibility helps explain how Norse traders and warriors reached inland markets and distant courts. Their ships were not just transportation. They were tools for bending the landscape to human ambition. Norse poetry preserved family fame like treasure passed through generations. In a world where many stories were spoken before they were written, memory had power. Skilled poets could turn a leader's deeds, a family's ancestry, or a battle's outcome into verse that lasted far beyond the moment itself. This was not casual entertainment. Poetry could protect reputation, sharpen insult, praise generosity, and carry history across generations. The most gifted poets used complex patterns of rhythm and imagery that made their work memorable to trained ears. A good verse could strengthen a ruler's name. A cruel one could stain it. In that sense, words were a kind of wealth. They moved through halls, assemblies, and journeys, binding people to the past. Families cared about descent because ancestry supported claims to land, honor, and leadership. To be forgotten was a serious loss. To be remembered well was a form of survival. Norse poetry shows a culture where speech itself could become monument, and where fame lived as long as someone could still recite it. Viking silver often came from Islamic coins cut into pieces. For many Norse traders, silver mattered by weight more than by stamped authority. Coins from the Islamic world arrived through Eastern trade routes, carrying Arabic inscriptions and links to distant economies. Once in Scandinavian hands, they were often chopped, bent, tested, and weighed. A fragment could be useful if the scale showed its value. This created a flexible system known as hack silver, where bracelets, ingots, coins, and broken pieces all served as portable wealth. The idea is fascinating because it turns treasure into something practical. A shining coin was not only admired as foreign money, it could be sliced into payment for goods, gifts, debts, or alliances. Archaeological hoards sometimes contain mixed silver from many origins, showing how wide the networks had become. A small piece found in a field might connect a northern farm to merchants near the Caspian or beyond. In Viking life, even a broken coin could carry the echo of half the known world. Their world stretched from Greenland farms to Constantinople's glittering streets. The range of Norse life was astonishing. At one edge, families tried to survive in Greenland, where farming required courage, timing, and adaptation to a severe environment. At another, Scandinavians served, traded, and witnessed the wealth of Constantinople, one of the most magnificent cities of the medieval world. Between those extremes lay islands, rivers, market towns, monasteries, forests, sea lanes, and courts. This was not a single lifestyle repeated everywhere. It was a web of different experiences connected by ships, kinship, language, trade, and ambition. A farmer in Iceland, a merchant in Hedeby, a warrior in the east, and a settler in the North Atlantic all belonged to overlapping Norse worlds. Yet their daily realities could be wildly different. That variety is what makes Viking life so compelling. It was not only axes and raids. It was migration, experiment, law, belief, hardship, and exchange. The Norse world was wide enough to include turf houses near ice and marble halls beneath imperial domes. The Viking Age began with the raid on Lindisfarne. The attack on the monastery of Lindisfarne in the late 8th century shocked Christian Europe because it struck a holy place famous for learning and devotion. To the victims and those who heard the news, the event seemed almost like a tear in the order of the world. Monasteries were not military strongholds. They held books, relics, ornaments, livestock, and precious objects used in worship. That made them vulnerable targets for seaborne raiders who could arrive quickly and vanish before organized defense gathered. The raid did not mean Scandinavian violence suddenly appeared from nowhere, but it became a symbolic beginning because written observers remembered it with horror. It also revealed a pattern that would become painfully familiar along many coasts. Ships brought armed crews to places that were rich, exposed, and unprepared. Lindisfarne stands at the threshold of the Viking Age because it announced that distance from Scandinavia was no longer safety. The sea had become a road for sudden change. Longships used overlapping planks that flexed with the sea. Norse shipwrights built hulls using a method known as clinker construction, where wooden planks overlapped along the sides and were fastened together. This produced a strong but surprisingly responsive vessel. Instead of resisting every wave with rigid heaviness, the hull could flex as it moved through rough water. That mattered enormously on northern seas, where conditions could shift quickly and survival depended on design as much as courage. The planks were shaped with skill, joined with iron rivets, and sealed so water stayed out, while movement remained possible. Every curve was practical. The long, narrow form helped with speed, while the flexible shell helped endure the strain of wind and waves. These ships were not crude. They were refined answers to real problems, improved over generations by people who understood wood, water, and weather through experience. When one of these vessels crossed a grey sea, it carried the intelligence of many hands. Its beauty came from usefulness made elegant. Navigation relied on stars, birds, currents, and inherited memory. Long-distance Norse sailing demanded a deep reading of the natural world. Without modern instruments, sailors watched the sky, the color of water, the behavior of seabirds, and the feel of wind and swell. Birds could suggest nearby land. Currents could help confirm a route. Cloud formations, drifting ice, seaweed, and even the smell of the air might offer clues. Knowledge was not stored in a single device. It lived in practiced observation and shared experience. A skilled navigator carried routes in memory, learning when to sail, where dangers lay, and how the sea changed by season. This does not make their voyages less impressive. It makes them more so. They crossed immense spaces using senses trained by generations of travel. Every successful passage depended on attention. A missed sign could mean hunger, delay, or disaster. To sail west into the North Atlantic was to trust not only a ship, but a living archive of wind, wave, bird flight, and human judgment. The Oseberg ship carried 2 women into an astonishing burial. One of the most remarkable archaeological finds from the Viking world was a richly furnished ship grave discovered in Norway. Inside lay the remains of 2 women, buried with a vessel of extraordinary craftsmanship and a collection of objects that still feels almost overwhelming. There were carved wooden animal heads, textiles, sledges, beds, buckets, tools, and household equipment. The burial suggests status, ritual, and a carefully staged farewell. It also challenges simple assumptions about who mattered in Norse society. The women were not placed in a modest grave. They were sent into death surrounded by wealth, labor, and artistry. The ship itself had been drawn onto land and covered by a mound, turning a vehicle of travel into a monument of memory. Scholars still debate the identities of the women and the meaning of the objects around them. That uncertainty adds to the power of the find. It feels like a door left partly open onto belief, rank, and the emotional weight of burial. Viking swords were treasured heirlooms with names and histories. A sword in the Viking world was far more than a strip of sharpened metal. It was expensive, difficult to make, and often tied to the identity of a family or warrior. Some blades were passed down through generations, gathering stories as they moved from hand to hand. A weapon might be remembered for the person who carried it, the conflict it survived, or the gift that first placed it in someone's keeping. Some swords were given names, a practice that reveals how deeply objects could become woven into reputation. The finest examples had patterned blades, decorated hilts, and imported steel of remarkable quality. Owning such a weapon signaled status as well as danger. It required resources, connections, and a place within a culture that valued martial honor. Yet its meaning was not only violent. A sword could be inheritance, reward, pledge, symbol, and memory. In a society where fame mattered, a blade could carry a story almost like a person. Many Norse households revolved around the central hearth. The hearth was the working center of the home. It cooked meals, warmed bodies, dried clothing, lit faces after sunset, and drew people together through the dark months of the year. Around it, daily life unfolded in layers. Food simmered, tools were mended, wool was worked, children listened, and adults shared news or settled plans. Fire had to be managed carefully because fuel took labor to gather, and weather could make warmth precious. The hearth also shaped the atmosphere of the house. Smoke, heat, shadows, and voices all gathered there. In the longhouse, where many tasks happened under one roof, this central flame gave structure to time itself. Morning work began near it. Evening stories ended beside it. Visitors might be welcomed near it. The hearth made survival possible, but it also made community visible. It turned a building from shelter into household. To understand Norse domestic life, imagine not silence, but the steady presence of fire holding the room together. Iron cooking pots were valuable tools in everyday survival. A simple cooking pot could be one of the most important possessions in a household. Iron required skill, fuel, and labor to produce, so a durable vessel represented real value. It allowed families to boil meat, make stews, prepare grains, heat water, and stretch ingredients into meals that could feed many people. In a northern climate, where stored food mattered and fresh supplies were seasonal, that flexibility was essential. A pot could transform tough cuts, dried fish, roots, beans, or grain into something nourishing. It also supported hospitality, since feeding guests was part of social life and reputation. The object may seem plain compared with swords or jewelry, but it touched survival more often than either. It sat near the hearth, blackened by use, repaired when possible, and relied upon day after day. Archaeologists value such finds because they reveal the real texture of life. Behind every famous voyage, someone had to cook the food that kept bodies working. Bread was often flat, dark, and baked on hot stones. Norse bread was usually far from the soft loaves many people imagine today. It was often made from barley, rye, oats, or mixed grains, depending on region and season. The result could be dense, coarse, and hearty, shaped into flat rounds or cakes that cooked quickly on heated stones or iron plates. This kind of bread suited a practical world. It used available crops, required no elaborate oven, and could accompany soups, dairy, fish, or preserved meat. Grain had to be grown, harvested, dried, stored, ground, and protected from damp or pests, so every piece represented work spread across months. In poorer years, people might stretch flour with peas, bark flour, or other additions. That detail brings the past close. Food was not background. It was uncertainty, planning, and adaptation. A flat cake beside the fire could carry the taste of weather, soil, labor, and luck. It was ordinary, but never meaningless. Mead, ale, and whey helped people through long winters. Drink in the Viking world was practical as well as social. Ale could be brewed from grain and served at meals, gatherings, and feasts. Mead, made with honey, carried special associations because honey was valuable and sweetness was not everyday abundance. Whey, left from dairy production, could be drunk fresh or used in preserving food. In cold regions, these drinks helped households use resources efficiently and brought variety when winter narrowed the diet. Brewing also made grain into something storable and shareable. At feasts, drinking strengthened bonds, marked promises, and displayed a host's generosity. The cup passed through more than thirst. It moved through obligation, celebration, and memory. Yet beyond the hall, drink was part of routine survival. Milk turned into butter, cheese, and whey. Grain turned into bread and ale. Honey turned into rare sweetness with ritual weight. These transformations show how carefully Norse households managed what they had. Winter was endured not by one heroic act, but by thousands of stored decisions. Cattle showed wealth because they gave milk, meat, and status. Livestock stood at the center of rural Norse life, and cattle were especially important. They required pasture, winter fodder, shelter, and steady care, so owning them signaled resources and planning. A cow could provide milk that became butter, cheese, skyr, and whey, turning grass into food people could store and use in many forms. When slaughtered, cattle gave meat, hide, horn, bone, and sinew. Their value reached beyond the table. Herd size could reflect a household's standing, support marriage arrangements, and influence local reputation. In some societies connected to the Norse world, wealth was measured quite literally in living animals. Keeping cattle alive through winter was a serious challenge, because hay had to be cut and stored before the cold arrived. One poor season could threaten both animals and people. That makes cattle more than background scenery. They were walking security, labor made visible, and a measure of how well a household could command land, time, and care. Sheep supplied wool for sails, clothing, blankets, and trade. A flock was far more than a source of meat. In Norse life, sheep were engines of survival, because wool answered so many needs at once. It could be spun into thread, woven into cloth, felted into warm layers, and turned into the great square sails that carried ships across the sea. The same animal could help clothe a child, warm a sleeping bench, and support a trading journey to another coast. Wool was especially precious because it kept some insulating power even when damp, which mattered in a world of rain, spray, mud, and cold wind. Different textures served different purposes. Coarser fibers could become tough outer garments, while softer fibers worked closer to the skin. Dyeing added color when plants, minerals, and skill allowed it. Every fleece represented grazing land, shearing, cleaning, carding, spinning, weaving, and finishing. So when we imagine Viking wealth, we should not picture only silver and swords. Sometimes it looked like a field full of sheep. Viking sails required enormous amounts of carefully spun wool. A longship's sail was not just a piece of fabric. It was one of the most demanding technologies in the Norse world. Before it ever caught wind, countless fibers had to be cleaned, combed, twisted, and woven with steady hands. The finished cloth needed strength, flexibility, and resistance to wet weather. It might also be treated with substances such as animal fat, fish oil, or other mixtures to improve performance at sea. A poor sail could slow a voyage, tear under stress, or endanger a crew when weather turned hard. A good one transformed wind into motion, letting a ship travel farther than oars alone could manage. Its size could be astonishing when viewed up close, especially on larger vessels. It rose above the hull like a woven wall of labor. Every voyage depended on this hidden work. The drama of the sea often began inland, in the patient making of thread that would later pull a ship over the horizon. A single sail could represent years of women's skilled labor. The great voyages of the Viking Age rested on textile work that rarely gets the same attention as shipbuilding. In many households, women and girls spun wool for endless hours because thread was needed for clothing, bedding, repairs, trade, and sails. Making enough for one large sail could demand an immense investment of time. It required knowledge of fiber, twist, tension, weaving, and finishing. This was not unskilled background work. It was technical production at the heart of movement and power. Without it, ships could not travel the same distances, traders could not reach the same markets, and raiding crews could not strike with the same speed. A sail carried the labor of hands that may never have boarded the ship it moved. That is what makes it so remarkable. The famous image of men crossing the sea is incomplete without the women who made the wind usable. Their work did not merely support history, it helped drive it. Norse children learned work early through games and imitation. Childhood in the Viking world was not separated from adult life in the way many people expect today. Children grew up among animals, tools, fires, boats, fields, looms, and constant household tasks. They learned by watching before they were formally taught. A child might imitate rowing with a stick, practice carving on scraps of wood, help gather fuel, tend smaller animals, or copy textile work beside older relatives. Play was still play, but it often pointed toward future responsibility. Small toys such as wooden figures, miniature weapons, and simple game pieces reveal imagination as well as preparation. Through games, children could rehearse courage, strategy, balance, memory, and social rules. The world around them expected usefulness, especially as they grew stronger. Yet this does not mean their lives lacked affection or wonder. It means learning was woven into daily rhythm. A child absorbed skill by being near the work. Bit by bit, the household taught them how to belong. Storytelling kept history alive beside winter fires. During the long dark season, spoken stories became a kind of shelter. People gathered indoors while weather pressed against walls and work slowed into repair, preparation, and memory. In that setting, tales of ancestors, voyages, feuds, gods, clever bargains, and impossible luck could fill the room. These were not only entertainments for passing time. They taught listeners what courage looked like, what shame could cost, how kinship worked, and why a promise mattered. A good storyteller could make the past feel present. Names of distant relatives and long-dead rivals returned to life through voice alone. Children heard where they came from. Guests learned what kind of household had welcomed them. Communities remembered victories and wounds that shaped their identity. Before many of these traditions were written down, they survived because people cared enough to repeat them. The fire gave light, but the stories gave continuity. In a world where reputation could outlive the body, memory was one of the deepest forms of inheritance. Runes were carved on stones, cones, weapons, and everyday objects. Runic writing was not limited to grand monuments. It appeared across the material world, scratched or carved into things people touched, carried, used, and displayed. A stone might proclaim a family memorial. A weapon might bear a name or mark of ownership. A comb, bone, stick, or small object could carry a message that feels startlingly personal after so many centuries. The alphabet itself had sharp, straight lines suited to carving into wood, bone, or stone. Writing took effort, so even short inscriptions mattered. They reveal literacy as something practical, magical, commemorative and social, depending on the context. Some marks asked to be remembered. Others simply stated who owned an item. The power lies in the contact between hand and surface. A person chose a tool, cut a sign, and left a trace of thought in the world. To read those signs now is to feel time briefly collapse. A small carved line can bring an individual voice back from the Viking Age. Some room messages were jokes, love notes, or simple ownership marks. The most charming inscriptions are often the least formal. Not every carved line announced a king or mourned the dead. Some messages feel teasing, affectionate, practical, or wonderfully ordinary. A person might write that an object belonged to them. Someone else might carve a flirtatious line, a boast, or a joke meant for a nearby reader. These small inscriptions matter because they loosen the past from its stiffness. They show people with humor, irritation, desire, pride, and everyday concerns. The Viking world was serious in many ways, but it was also human. People lost things, marked possessions, mocked each other, practiced writing, and left little verbal fingerprints wherever materials allowed. Such messages can be found on scraps that were never meant to become famous. That makes them feel intimate. A runic monument tells us what a family wanted remembered. A casual line on a common object may tell us what someone felt in a passing moment. Both are precious, but they speak in different voices. The Viking town of Hedeby buzzed with traders from many lands. Hedeby stood near a crucial crossing between the North Sea and the Baltic, which made it one of the great trading places of the Viking Age. Goods arrived from different directions, bringing people who carried languages, weights, fashions, and habits from far beyond Scandinavia. In its streets and workshops, artisans worked bone, metal, amber, glass, leather, and wood. Merchants weighed silver, negotiated prices, stored cargo, and watched the movement of ships. The settlement had defenses, houses, jetties, and a rhythm shaped by exchange. It was not a quiet village on the edge of the world. It was a crowded contact point where local production met international desire. A person walking through Hedeby might see imported beads, foreign coins, fine textiles, iron tools, and raw materials waiting to be transformed. The town reminds us that Viking society was not only mobile because of ships. It was also connected through marketplaces where ideas and objects changed hands, and where the wider world came ashore. Birka connected Scandinavian merchants with faraway eastern routes. Set on an island in Lake Mälaren, Birka became a key center for exchange in Sweden. Its location connected inland resources with routes that reached outward toward the Baltic and the river systems beyond. Traders gathered there with goods that could move in many directions, from northern furs and iron to beads, silver, and luxury items from distant regions. The archaeological remains reveal craft production, burial wealth, imported materials, and a community shaped by commerce. Birka was also protected and organized, which suggests that trade needed authority as much as opportunity. Merchants did not simply wander randomly with sacks of goods. They depended on safe harbors, trusted measures, social ties, and places where strangers could meet under known expectations. The town's graves show a population with varied connections and identities. Some people carried objects from far away, while others made the items that travelers wanted. Birka helps us picture the Viking Age as a network of lakes, ships, roads, hands, and bargains. Jorvik became a thriving Norse city in northern England. After Scandinavian settlers took control of York, the city developed into one of the most important urban centers in the Viking world. Known as Jorvik, it sat in a landscape already shaped by Roman walls, Anglo-Saxon power, and regional trade. The Norse presence added new energy, craft, and connection. Excavations have uncovered streets, workshops, tools, shoes, textiles, wood, bone, and traces of daily life preserved in damp soil. These remains reveal a packed and busy city where people made combs, repaired leather, traded goods, cooked meals, and lived close together amid smells and noise. Jorvik was not a temporary camp. It was an urban society with artisans, merchants, families, and political importance. The city connected the North Sea world with inland England, making it a place where cultures met and changed each other. Its story shows that Viking influence was not only destructive, it could also be civic, commercial, and deeply woven into the development of medieval towns. Dublin grew into a major Viking trading settlement. The city we know today has deep roots in a Norse settlement established beside a sheltered harbour and river access. Its position made it valuable for movement, commerce, and control. Over time, Dublin became a major hub linking Ireland with the Irish Sea, Britain, Scandinavia, and wider trade networks. Norse settlers there were not simply passing raiders. They built houses, formed families, minted influence, and took part in the political life of the region. The settlement became known for trade in goods and people, including enslaved captives, which formed a harsh part of the economy. It also became a place of cultural mixing, where Norse and Gaelic worlds interacted through conflict, alliance, marriage, and exchange. Dublin's later growth cannot be understood without this Viking foundation. It shows how a fortified riverside base could become an enduring urban centre. The transformation from raiding station to city reveals one of the Viking Age's most important patterns. Violence could open doors, but trade often kept them open. Viking traders carried amber, furs, walrus ivory, and enslaved captives. The goods that moved through Norse networks tell a story of beauty, hardship, luxury, and cruelty. Amber from the Baltic could glow like captured sunlight and was valued for ornaments. Furs from northern forests offered warmth and status in colder markets and wealthy courts. Walrus ivory from Arctic waters could be carved into fine objects, gaming pieces, and religious items. These materials connected remote landscapes to elite demand across Europe and beyond. Yet the same trade routes also carried human beings who had been captured, bought, sold, or forced into service. That fact must not be softened. Viking commerce included suffering as well as craftsmanship. A merchant's cargo could contain objects of wonder and evidence of violence in the same journey. This makes the trading world more complex and more honest. It was not a simple tale of adventurous exchange. It was a system where profit could come from rare northern resources, skilled transport, sharp negotiation, and the exploitation of vulnerable people. Enslaved people were part of Viking households and commerce. Slavery existed across much of the medieval world, and Norse society was no exception. Enslaved people could be captured in raids, born into unfree status, bought in markets, or moved along trade routes. They worked in households, farms, workshops, and sometimes in conditions that left few traces in written records. Their labor supported the lives of free families and elites, yet their names and stories were often not preserved. That silence is one of the hardest parts of studying the past. In some cases, enslaved people could be freed, but freedom did not erase the reality of the system they endured. Their presence changes how we understand Viking prosperity. It was not only built by bold sailors and clever traders. It also rested on coerced labor and human inequality. When we imagine a longhouse, a farm, or a busy market, we should remember that not everyone there had the same rights, choices, or safety. Viking life contained brilliance, but also deep injustice. Norse law was spoken aloud at open-air assemblies. Before law existed mainly as books and offices, it could live in voice, memory, and public gathering. Norse communities held assemblies where free people met to hear cases, settle disputes, confirm agreements, and speak judgments. These events usually took place outdoors at recognized sites, often tied to landscape and tradition. The spoken nature of law made memory extremely important. Legal experts had to know customs, procedures, and formulas well enough to recite and apply them. Public hearing mattered because justice depended on witnesses and reputation. A decision carried weight when people saw it, made and heard it declared. The assembly was also social and political. People arrived with allies, grievances, ambitions, and news. A legal meeting could become a stage for persuasion, pressure, compromise, or confrontation. This kind of law feels very different from a sealed courtroom. It belonged to the open air, to gathered bodies, and to the collective memory of a community deciding what order should mean. The thing was where disputes, alliances, and judgments unfolded. The word thing may sound plain today, but in Norse society, it named one of the most important institutions in public life. A thing was an assembly where law, politics, and community met. People came to settle conflicts over land, inheritance, injury, insult, debt, marriage, and killing. They also came to make alliances, support leaders, witness agreements, and hear announcements. The gathering was not always calm. A powerful family could arrive with followers to strengthen its position. A weaker party might depend on skilled speech, legal knowledge, or respected supporters. Because honor and reputation mattered so much, a public accusation could be dangerous even before judgment was reached. Yet the thing offered an alternative to endless violence. It gave a framework where compensation, settlement, and recognition could prevent feuds from consuming entire families. Its importance lies in that balance. Norse society valued strength, but it also needed procedure. The thing was where power had to speak in the language of law. Outlawry could strip a person of protection and community. In a world where safety depended heavily on kinship and social recognition, outlawry was terrifying. To be declared outside the law could mean losing the protection that normally restrained enemies from attacking you. In some cases, property could be seized, support could vanish, and ordinary relationships could become dangerous. The punishment worked because community was not optional. People needed networks for food, shelter, work, travel, marriage, legal defense, and survival through hard seasons. Being cut off from those bonds was a kind of social death. Icelandic sagas show how powerful this idea could be, with outlaws forced into remote landscapes, living on the edge of hunger and violence. The drama is not only physical, it is emotional and legal. A person who had belonged somewhere could become someone others were permitted, or even expected, to reject. Outlawry reveals how Norse law could punish without prison. It used exclusion as a weapon, and in a harsh world, exclusion could be lethal. Feuds could last generations unless compensation restored fragile peace. When honor, injury, and kinship collided, violence could echo far beyond a single event. A killing might demand revenge because the victim's family could not allow the loss to stand unanswered. Yet revenge could produce another killing, which created another obligation, until entire families were pulled into a cycle of retaliation. Compensation offered a way out. Payments for injury or death did not mean grief was simple or anger vanished. They provided a recognized settlement that allowed both sides to step back without complete humiliation. The amount could depend on status, circumstances, and negotiation. Public agreement mattered because peace had to be witnessed. Without that recognition, suspicion could linger and violence could return. Feuds show the pressure within Norse society. People valued courage and loyalty, but they also understood that endless bloodshed could destroy farms, families, and futures. The most impressive achievement was not always striking back. Sometimes it was finding a settlement strong enough to hold. Honor mattered deeply in Norse law, poetry, and daily life. For Norse people, reputation was not a private feeling hidden inside the heart. It was a social force that shaped how others treated you, trusted you, feared you, or followed you. A person's honor could be built through generosity, bravery, skill, loyalty, honesty, and the ability to defend family interests. It could be damaged through cowardice, insult, betrayal, or failure to answer a serious wrong. This mattered in law because testimony, support, and settlement all depended on standing within the community. It mattered in poetry because praise could preserve a name, while mockery could wound it. It mattered at feasts, in marriages, in bargains, and even in ordinary speech. A careless insult might become more than words if it challenged someone's place in society. Honor helped hold a violent world together, but it could also pull people toward danger. Its power lay in visibility. To live well was not only to survive, it was to be seen surviving with dignity. Gift-giving created obligations that bound leaders and followers. A gift in the Viking world was rarely just a pleasant surprise. It could create a relationship with expectations on both sides. A leader who gave rings, weapons, food, clothing, or treasure showed generosity and strength. The receiver gained wealth, but also a bond of loyalty, gratitude, and future service. This exchange helped build the networks that made leadership possible. Men followed a generous lord not only because he commanded them, but because he rewarded them and drew them into his honor. Refusing to give could make a leader look weak or greedy. Accepting could place a person inside a web of obligation. The object itself mattered, but so did the public moment of giving. Witnesses saw who was favored, who owed loyalty, and who possessed the resources to reward others. This system turned wealth into political energy. Silver hidden in a chest was only potential power. Silver placed into another person's hand could become allegiance. Chieftains gained power by feeding warriors and sharing treasure. Leadership depended on more than birth. A chieftain had to attract support, and support required visible generosity. Warriors and followers expected hospitality, rewards, protection, and opportunities for game. A hall filled with food and drink showed that a leader could gather resources and distribute them. Treasure shared after a successful expedition turned victory into loyalty. This is why hoards, rings, fine weapons, and feasts mattered so much. They were not decorative extras. They were tools of power. A leader who kept everything for himself risked losing followers to someone more open-handed. A leader who gave too much without gaining more could weaken his own position. The balance was delicate. Political authority grew through reputation, wealth, bravery, kinship, and the ability to keep people close. Behind the heroic image of a chieftain stood practical management. He needed farms, ships, allies, storage, skilled workers, and luck. Power was not held still. It had to be fed, displayed, and renewed. Feasting was politics as much as celebration. A feast could look like pleasure from the outside, but it often carried serious meaning. Seating showed rank. Serving displayed wealth. Toasts, speeches, gifts, and promises could shape alliances. Guests observed how much food and drink a host could provide, because abundance suggested competence and influence. In a world without instant communication, gatherings were opportunities to gather news, settle tensions, arrange marriages, reward loyalty, and test relationships. The hall itself became a political stage. Who sat closest to the host mattered. Who received the finest portion could matter. Who was ignored might remember it. Of course, feasts were also moments of warmth, music, laughter, and relief from labor. That is what made them powerful. They joined pleasure with obligation so naturally that people could celebrate and negotiate at the same time. A successful feast sent guests home with full bellies and clearer loyalties. A failed one could expose weakness. In Viking life, hospitality was not soft. It was strategy served by firelight. Drinking horns carried more than ale during ritual gatherings. In many Norse settings, shared drinking could carry religious, legal, and social meaning. A horn passed from hand to hand might mark a toast to gods, ancestors, leaders, or the dead. Words spoken over drink could become promises with weight, especially when witnesses heard them. The object itself could be decorated, treasured, and used in moments when community identity was being reinforced. Drinking did not simply fill a pause between events. It helped create the event. At seasonal gatherings or important feasts, a horn could move through the room like a thread tying people together. Each person who drank entered the shared moment. The liquid might be ordinary, but the act could be charged with memory and expectation. Later, Christian observers sometimes described such customs with suspicion. Yet archaeology and literature both show that ritualized drinking mattered. The horn held more than alcohol. It held public speech, shared belief, and the fragile power of people agreeing, for a moment, to belong together. Viking clothing was colorful, layered, and carefully decorated. The image of plain brown roughness misses much of the truth. Norse clothing could be vivid, textured, and expressive when resources allowed. People wore layers suited to cold, work, travel, and status. Linen undergarments might sit beneath wool tunics, dresses, cloaks, hoods, or leg coverings. Colors came from dyes made with plants, lichens, minerals, and skilled preparation. Blue, red, yellow, green, and other shades were possible, though some were more costly or difficult to achieve than others. Decoration could include tablet-woven bands, embroidery, fur trim, beads, brooches, and metal fittings. Clothing announced gender, wealth, region, role, and taste. It also had to function in a demanding world. Garments needed to keep bodies warm, allow movement, and survive hard use. The result was practical beauty. A person walking into a hall might be read at a glance through fabric, fastenings, and color. In that society, the body was dressed not only for weather, but for meaning. Brooches fastened clothing and displayed wealth in plain sight. In Norse dress, fasteners were often both practical and expressive. Oval brooches could secure a woman's overgarment at the shoulders, while other forms fastened cloaks or decorated outfits. These objects could be made from bronze, silver, or gilded metal, and some carried intricate patterns that caught the light. Because they were worn openly, they turned wealth into something visible in daily life. A pair of fine brooches did more than hold fabric in place. They signaled access to materials, craft, and style. They could also support strings of beads, tools, keys, or small personal items. This made the front of the body a kind of display space where function and identity overlapped. Archaeologists often find brooches in graves, which helps reconstruct clothing traditions and social roles. The most striking examples show how much artistry could live in an ordinary act, like getting dressed. To fasten clothing was also to fasten oneself into a social world of status, gender, and memory. Glass beads traveled huge distances before reaching Norse necklaces. A small bead can hold a surprisingly large story. Many glass beads found in Scandinavian contexts were made through skilled craft traditions that connected to wider European and Eastern networks. Some were imported, while others were produced closer to home using techniques and materials shaped by long-distance exchange. Their colors could be rich and varied, including deep blue, yellow, green, black, white, and red. To wear them was to carry evidence of travel, trade, and taste against the body. A necklace might combine beads from different sources, gathered over time through purchase, gift, inheritance, or exchange. Each bead could be tiny, but together they formed a visible statement of connection. They show that Viking Age beauty was not isolated. It drew on roots that crossed seas, rivers, towns, and cultural boundaries. When a bead reached a Norse household, it had already passed through hands and places unknown. Its size was small, but its journey could be enormous. Combs were common because grooming mattered in Viking society. One of the most frequent personal items found from Viking Age sites is the comb. Many were made from antler or bone, carefully shaped, riveted, and decorated. Their abundance tells us something important about daily self-presentation. Hair and beard care mattered. Grooming was not a luxury reserved only for elites. It was part of social life, cleanliness, comfort, and identity. A comb could remove tangles, control lice, and help maintain an appearance suitable for home, market, feast, or travel. Some were kept in cases, which protected the teeth and made them easier to carry. The craftsmanship could be impressive, with fine cutting and neat ornament. These objects also remind us that people in the past cared how they looked. They noticed each other's hair, clothing, smell, and bearing. The comb is intimate archaeology. It sat in a hand, moved through hair, and belonged to the small routines that made a person feel ordered before stepping into the world. Arab observers noticed Norse people washed more than expected. Some written accounts from travelers in the wider Islamic world describe northern traders with a mixture of fascination, judgment, and surprise. One especially famous observer criticized certain habits sharply, yet also noted regular washing practices among the people he saw. The details are not always flattering, and they reflect an outsider's standards, but they complicate the modern stereotype of Vikings as simply filthy. Archaeology supports a more balanced picture through finds such as combs, tweezers, ear spoons, and washing items. Personal care was part of life, even if it did not match modern expectations. People living in smoky houses, working with animals, sailing in salt spray, and handling messy materials had practical reasons to wash and groom when possible. Cleanliness also carried social value. A well-kept appearance could matter in trade, courtship, feasting, and public reputation. The real picture is neither spotless nor savage. It is human, practical, and far more interesting than the old caricature. Soapstone vessels survived heat and traveled through trade networks. Soapstone was a remarkable material for cooking and storage because it handled heat well and could be carved into useful forms. In parts of Scandinavia, especially Norway, it was quarried and shaped into pots, bowls, lamps, and other vessels. Unlike fragile ceramics, soapstone could be durable under the stresses of hearth use. Its weight meant it was not always easy to move, yet finished pieces still traveled through trade. That tells us they were valued enough to justify transport. A soapstone pot links geology to cooking, craft, and commerce. First, someone had to extract the stone. Then it had to be carved with skill so it would hold liquid, sit near fire, and survive repeated heating. After that, it might be carried to a settlement where the stone itself was not available. In a kitchen, such an object could serve for years. It reminds us that Viking trade was not only about glittering luxuries. It also moved heavy, useful things that improved everyday life. Everyday knives were essential tools carried by many adults. A small knife was one of the most useful objects a person could own. It could cut food, shape wood, trim leather, prepare cordage, clean fish, repair gear, and assist in countless household tasks. Many adults likely carried a practical blade as part of daily life. This does not mean every knife was a weapon in the dramatic sense. Most were tools first, as ordinary and necessary as a pocket knife might be in a rural community. The blade might hang from a belt or be kept close for work that arose without warning. Its value lay in readiness. A broken strap, a tangled line, a meal, a craft task, or a farm chore might all call for the same simple edge. Archaeologists find knives in settlements and graves because they touched nearly every part of life. In a world where people made and repaired so much by hand, cutting was a basic technology. A knife gave a person control over materials, and that meant independence. Viking axes served as tools before becoming famous weapons. The axe was central to Norse life because wood was everywhere in the built world. Houses, ships, carts, fences, bowls, handles, chests, and fuel all depended on cutting and shaping timber. Long before an axe appeared in battle, it earned its place through work. Different forms served different purposes. Some were suited to splitting firewood, others to finer shaping, and some were adapted for fighting. That practical origin makes the weapon more revealing. It was familiar in the hand, affordable compared with a sword, and deeply tied to the skills of daily survival. A farmer who owned an axe already possessed a tool that could become dangerous if conflict came. In warfare, specialized axes could be light, fast, and brutal, with broad edges or long handles depending on use. Their fame comes partly from that blend of ordinary and fearsome. The same basic technology that built a hall or shaped a ship could also decide a fight. In Viking life, utility and violence often stood close together. Shields were light, practical, and often brightly painted. A Viking shield was not a heavy wall of metal. It was usually a round wooden defense built for movement, speed, and control. The boards could be thin enough to keep the shield manageable in the hand, with an iron boss at the center to protect the grip. This made it useful not only for blocking blows, but also for pushing, striking, angling, and creating space in close combat. Paint may have helped seal the wood, but it also turned a shield into a visible statement. A line of warriors with painted shields would not have looked dull or uniform. It could have been a moving pattern of color, identity, and intimidation. The shield was expected to take damage. It might splinter, catch an edge, or be replaced after hard use. That was part of its purpose. It was not only armor. It was a tool of timing, courage, and survival, held between a body and the chaos around it. Helmets rarely had horns despite the famous modern myth. The horned helmet is one of the most recognizable Viking images, yet it belongs far more to later imagination than to Viking reality. Actual helmets from the period were practical pieces of protection, made to guard the head without adding dangerous weight or awkward projections. Horns would have been a terrible idea in combat. They could catch on weapons, branches, shields, or ship equipment. They would also make the wearer easier to grab and harder to move safely in a crush of bodies. The myth grew through later art, theater, and romantic visions of the northern past. It became so powerful that many people still picture it instantly. The real helmet, however, is more interesting because it reveals a society that understood function. Protection had to work in rain, mud, ships, farms, and battlefields. Viking warriors did not need horns to look formidable. Their reputation came from mobility, discipline, surprise, and skill, not from fantasy ornaments added centuries later. Chainmail was expensive, and probably limited to wealthier fighters. A mail shirt represented an enormous investment of material and labor. It was made from many small iron rings linked together, which meant mining ore, making iron, drawing or shaping rings, and fastening them one by one. The result could protect the body from cuts and glancing blows while still allowing movement. Yet it was not something every fighter could casually own. Many people who joined raids or battles likely relied on shields, thick clothing, helmets if available, and whatever weapons they could afford. Mail belonged to those with status, wealth, or access to powerful patrons. It could be inherited, gifted, repaired, and valued for years. In a society where generosity helped bind followers to leaders, giving armor could be a serious political act. A man wearing mail would have looked different in a fight. He carried not only protection, but visible proof that resources stood behind him. Armor was never just equipment. It was social rank made wearable. Most Viking warriors used spears rather than swords. The spear was the common weapon of the Viking Age because it was effective, versatile, and far cheaper than a fine blade. It required less metal than a sword, yet gave the user reach and striking power. A spear could thrust, throw, threaten from behind a shield, or hold an enemy at distance. It suited fighting on land and could be used by men of different wealth levels. Some spearheads were plain and practical. Others were beautifully shaped, decorated, or made with great care. The weapon also carried symbolic weight. In Norse tradition, Odin was closely linked with the spear, which gave it a meaning beyond ordinary use. On a battlefield, a line of spear points could be terrifying. Against a single opponent, reach could decide the encounter before a sword ever came close. The modern imagination loves the sword because it feels heroic and personal. The Viking world knew something simpler. The spear was deadly, dependable, and everywhere. Raiding depended on speed, surprise, and precise seasonal timing. A successful raid was not random chaos. It required planning, intelligence, and timing. Crews had to choose targets that were reachable, vulnerable, and worth the risk. Weather mattered. Daylight mattered. Tides, river levels, harvest seasons, and local defenses all mattered. A ship had to arrive before warning spread and leave before a strong response gathered. That made speed as important as violence. Monasteries, coastal estates, and river settlements could be struck because portable wealth might be taken quickly. The raiders also needed to know when people were distracted, when roads were passable, and when sailing home would still be possible. To the victims, an attack could feel sudden and supernatural. To the attackers, it was usually a calculated operation. There was danger on both sides. A delay, storm, hidden defenders, or bad information could turn opportunity into disaster. The power of raiding came from choosing the moment so carefully that the enemy had almost no time to become ready. Many raids targeted monasteries because they held portable wealth. Monasteries were attractive targets because they often gathered valuable objects in places that were not built like fortresses. Chalices, reliquaries, books with precious covers, livestock, food stores, and metalwork could all draw attention. These communities were also linked to religious prestige, which made attacks feel especially shocking to Christian writers who recorded them. For raiders, however, the calculation could be brutally practical. A monastery might sit near water, hold concentrated wealth, and lack enough armed defenders to resist a fast strike. Portable treasure mattered because ships had limited space, and crews wanted goods that could be carried, traded, melted, or gifted. Sacred meaning did not protect silver from someone who did not share the same reverence. That clash of values made the violence seem even more horrifying to those who suffered it. Yet these attacks were not only about greed. They revealed how seaborne mobility could overturn assumptions of safety. A peaceful religious house could suddenly become a prize because geography had changed through ships. Winter camps turned raiding armies into settled political forces. At first, many Viking attacks were seasonal. Crews arrived, took wealth, and returned home before conditions changed. Over time, larger forces began staying through the winter in defended camps. That shift was enormous. A winter camp meant planning for food, shelter, repairs, storage, negotiations, and defense. It also meant the raiders were no longer just visitors with weapons. They became an ongoing presence in the landscape. From such bases, armies could pressure local rulers, demand payments, launch campaigns, and sometimes take land. The camp became a bridge between raiding and settlement. People who stayed through one winter might stay longer, form alliances, or bring in support. Local populations had to respond not to a sudden strike, but to a power that remained. This changed the politics of kingdoms across Britain, Ireland, and parts of the continent. The danger was no longer only the ship on the horizon. It was the fortified camp nearby, filled with people who had begun to belong there by force. The Great Army reshaped parts of England forever. When a large Scandinavian force arrived in England in the late 9th century, it changed the scale of conflict. This was not a small raiding crew searching for quick treasure. It was an army capable of campaigning across kingdoms, toppling rulers, taking tribute, and settling land. Anglo-Saxon kingdoms faced pressure that tested their alliances and military systems. Some regions fell under strong Scandinavian influence, while others resisted through war, negotiation, and reform. The struggle helped shape the future of England because it forced political consolidation and altered settlement patterns across the north and east. Armies moved through towns, river routes, and old Roman roads. Leaders rose and fell under the strain. The results endured in law, language, place names, and identity. The story is dramatic because it shows how mobility turned into territory. A force that began with ships could become farms, families, markets, and new regional cultures. The Great Army did not merely raid England. It helped remake it. Norse settlers transformed the language and landscape of northern England. Scandinavian settlement left marks that can still be heard and seen. In parts of northern and eastern England, place names with endings linked to Norse speech reveal where communities took root. Words connected to law, farming, daily life, and landscape entered local usage and helped shape English as it developed. This influence did not happen through a single moment. It grew through neighbors speaking, trading, marrying, arguing, farming, and raising children. A village name could preserve the memory of a Scandinavian farmstead long after the people themselves blended into the wider population. Language changed because life was shared. The contact was not always peaceful, but over generations it became ordinary. Fields were worked, roads were used, markets opened, and families carried mixed traditions forward. This kind of transformation is quieter than battle, but far more enduring. A sword can change a day. A word can survive for centuries. Norse settlement entered the very map, and in some places, it never fully left. Many English place names still carry Viking roots. The landscape of England holds hidden traces of Norse settlement in names that people use without noticing their age. Endings such as by, thorp, thwaite, and toft appear across regions that experienced Scandinavian influence. These elements often point to farms, villages, clearings, or pieces of land. A modern traveler passing through such places may be moving through a linguistic museum without realizing it. The names are important because they show settlement at a local level. They suggest not only armies and kings, but families who named fields, streams, and homes in the words they knew. Over time, pronunciations changed and communities mixed, yet the old roots remained embedded in signs, maps, and addresses. There is something astonishing about that survival. A name spoken in a train station or written on a road sign may carry the memory of people who crossed the North Sea more than 1,000 years ago. The Viking Age did not vanish. It became part of the everyday language of place. Iceland was settled by Norse families seeking land and opportunity. The settlement of Iceland was one of the boldest migrations of the Viking Age. Families crossed dangerous northern waters to a volcanic island with no towns, no old farms, and no familiar political order waiting for them. For many, the attraction was land. In Scandinavia and the Northern Islands, power could be crowded and inheritance could be limiting. Iceland offered space, though it demanded resilience. Settlers had to build homes from turf and timber, raise animals, learn new grazing patterns, and survive unfamiliar weather. They brought law, language, poetry, tools, livestock, and memory with them. The island became a society shaped by households rather than kings, with powerful families competing for influence across a difficult landscape. Its later writings preserved some of the richest stories we have from the Norse world. Iceland matters because it shows Viking expansion as more than raiding. It was a leap into settlement, experimentation, and community building on the edge of the known North Atlantic. The Icelandic Alþingi became one of Europe's oldest assemblies. Early Icelandic society developed a remarkable national gathering known as the Alþingi. It met each year at a dramatic site where law, politics, and community memory came together. Chieftains, farmers, legal experts, and followers traveled from across the island to attend. Cases were heard, settlements were negotiated, laws were recited, and alliances were strengthened or broken. The setting mattered. People gathered in a landscape of rock, open sky, and visible fault lines, which gave the event a physical presence as well as a legal one. Because Iceland had no king in its early Commonwealth period, public assembly carried special weight. Authority depended on networks, law, persuasion, and reputation. The Alþingi was not a modern democracy, and power was uneven. Yet it created a framework that helped hold a widely scattered society together. Its endurance makes it extraordinary. In a harsh island world where distance could divide people, an annual meeting gave the community a shared center. Greenland farms survived for centuries in a harsh northern climate. Norse settlers in Greenland built a life at the far edge of medieval European farming. They arrived in a land of glaciers, short growing seasons, limited wood, and immense distances. Yet for generations they raised animals, built churches, traded valuable northern goods, and maintained ties with the wider Norse world. Their farms depended on careful use of pastures, stored fodder, hunting, and cooperation. Every winter tested the strength of preparation. Hay had to last. Animals had to survive. Boats had to connect scattered communities when conditions allowed. The achievement is remarkable because these settlements were not brief camps. They endured for hundreds of years. People were born, married, worshipped, worked, and died there, while Europe changed far to the south. Their disappearance later became one of the great historical puzzles of the North Atlantic. Climate pressure, trade shifts, isolation, and social choices may all have played a part. Greenland's Norse farms remind us how far adaptation can go and how fragile it remains. Norse Greenlanders traded walrus ivory with medieval Europe. In Greenland, farming alone was not enough to explain survival or connection. One of the most important exports was walrus ivory, taken from animals hunted in northern waters. This material could be carved into luxury objects, including gaming pieces, knife handles, and religious art. In medieval Europe, ivory carried prestige, and Greenland offered a northern source at a time when access to elephant ivory could shift with trade conditions. Obtaining walrus tusks required danger and organization. Hunters had to travel, find animals, process heavy materials, and move them back through difficult seas. The ivory then entered long trade chains that linked Arctic hunting grounds with churches, courts, and workshops far away. That connection is astonishing. A carved object in a European setting might have begun with a dangerous hunt beside cold water near the edge of the ice. Greenland's economy therefore tied remote households to elite tastes. It was not isolation alone. It was a distant partnership between survival and luxury. Lance Orks Meadows proves Vikings built in North America. On the northern tip of Newfoundland, archaeologists uncovered turf structures that match Norse building traditions. The site included evidence of ironworking, wood repair, and temporary occupation. It was not a later legend made real by wishful thinking. It was physical proof that Norse people crossed to North America and established a working base there. The discovery changed how the world understood medieval exploration. The settlement was not large, and it does not appear to have lasted long. Yet its importance is enormous because it confirms that the Atlantic was crossed from the northeast nearly 5 centuries before later European expeditions transformed the hemisphere. The people who built there were likely using it as a staging point for exploration, repair, and resource gathering. Imagine them cutting timber, mending boats, and watching an unfamiliar coastline from the doorway of a turf house. The site is modest in size but vast in meaning. It turns saga memory into ground, walls, ash, and iron. Vinland stories mix archaeology, saga memory, and real exploration. The Norse accounts of Vinland are among the most captivating travel stories of the medieval world. They describe voyages beyond Greenland to lands with timber, wild grapes or berries, new coastlines, and encounters with indigenous peoples. These narratives were written down later, so they are not simple eyewitness reports. They preserve memory shaped by storytelling, family pride, conflict, and time. Yet archaeology has shown that the core idea was real. Norse travelers did reach North America. The challenge is matching saga places to actual geography. Scholars debate where different locations may have been and how far south the voyagers traveled. That uncertainty gives the story its strange power. It sits between literature and landscape. Some details may be confused, symbolic, or compressed. Others may preserve authentic knowledge of routes and resources. Vinland matters because it shows exploration as experience remembered through human voices. It was not only a destination. It became a story people kept retelling because it stretched the limits of their world. Gudrid Thorbjarnardóttir may have traveled farther than most medieval women. Gudrid stands out in the Vinland sagas as a woman whose life seems to cross an astonishing map. The stories connect her with Iceland, Greenland, and voyages toward North America. Later tradition also links her with pilgrimage to Rome. While saga details must be handled carefully, the portrait is extraordinary. She appears not as a background figure, but as someone moving through the great currents of Norse expansion, marriage, conversion, settlement, and memory. Her life shows that mobility in the Viking world was not only male. Women could travel through family networks, migration, faith, and survival. The distances involved were immense for the period. North Atlantic journeys were dangerous, and any successful movement between these places required ships, weather knowledge, social ties, and courage. Gudrid's story feels almost global by medieval standards. Whether every detail is exact or polished by tradition, she represents a striking truth. The Viking Age carried some women far beyond the boundaries expected of their birthplaces. Norse sagas preserved voyages, feuds, marriages, and family pride. The sagas are among the richest windows into the Norse world, though they must be read with care. Written down mainly in medieval Iceland after the Viking Age, they preserve older memories through artful storytelling. Their pages are filled with difficult voyages, sharp insults, legal disputes, arranged marriages, revenge, loyalty, and the heavy weight of ancestry. They do not function like modern history books, yet they reveal what communities cared about. A family's honor could shape a plot as strongly as a battle. A marriage could redirect power. A single sentence spoken in a hall could lead to death many chapters later. The sagas are compelling because they treat ordinary social choices as deeply consequential. They show how reputation moved through generations and how people explained the past to themselves. Even when events are embellished, the emotional logic is valuable. Through them, we glimpse a society that understood life as a chain of remembered actions, where every decision could become a story. Skalds composed intricate poems that praised kings and warriors. Skaldic poetry was one of the most demanding verbal arts of the Norse world. Its poets used complex meters, layered images, and dense references that required trained listeners to follow. A ruler praised by a skilled skald gained more than entertainment. He gained public memory shaped in beautiful and difficult language. Poems could celebrate generosity, victories, ancestry, and courage, turning political reputation into something memorable enough to travel. The poet held a powerful position because words could honor or wound. A successful praise poem might reward the maker with gifts, protection, or status. The craft required not only talent, but knowledge of myth, genealogy, and social expectation. It could compress a battle into a few glittering lines that carried meaning for those who knew how to hear them. Skalds remind us that Viking power was not only physical, it was also literary, performative, and intellectual. A king needed ships and fighters, but a poet could help make his name endure. Odin was linked with wisdom, war, poetry, and sacrifice. Odin was one of the most complex figures in Norse belief. He was not simply a war god, though battle and the slain were deeply connected to him. He sought knowledge with restless hunger, even when the price was pain, loss, or risk. Traditions speak of him giving up an eye for wisdom and hanging in suffering to gain runes. He was also linked with poetry, magic, kingship, frenzy, and the mysterious forces that moved through fate and speech. This made him a god of unsettling depth. He could inspire rulers, poets, warriors, and seekers of hidden knowledge, yet he was not always comforting. His gifts could be dangerous. His favor could come with demands. In stories, Odin often travels in disguise, asking questions and testing those he meets. That image captures his nature beautifully. He is power that wanders, knowledge that costs, and victory shadowed by sacrifice. To understand him is to see how Norse myth joined brilliance with danger. Thor protected gods and humans with his mighty hammer. Thor was loved because he felt direct, powerful, and necessary. While Odin could seem mysterious and unsettling, Thor stood as a defender against giants, chaos, and threats to the ordered world. His hammer, Mjolnir, was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of protection, blessing, and divine strength. People wore hammer pendants in life, and the sign could appear in ritual contexts linked to safety and consecration. In the myths, Thor travels with appetite, temper, courage, and immense force. He fights monsters, crosses dangerous realms, and meets challenges with a physical boldness that made him easy to imagine. Farmers, sailors, and ordinary households could look to him as a guardian against forces beyond control. Thunder itself seemed to place his presence in the sky. His popularity tells us something important about Norse belief. People did not only need distant wisdom. They needed a protector who could stand at the boundary and strike back when the world felt threatened. Freyja was tied to love, battle, magic, and wealth. Freyja is one of the most fascinating figures in Norse mythology because she refuses to fit a single role. She is associated with desire, beauty, fertility, precious objects, and emotional longing. Yet she is also connected with battle and receives a share of the slain. Her link to Seither, a powerful form of magic, places her in the realm of prophecy, transformation, and hidden influence. This combination makes her neither soft nor simple. She embodies attraction and danger, abundance and grief, intimacy and power. Stories describe her treasured necklace, her falcon cloak, and her fierce independence when others try to bargain with her. Her presence suggests a world where divine femininity could include command, wealth, sexuality, sorrow, and supernatural skill. To worship or invoke such a figure was not merely to ask for romance or harvest. It was to approach a force that moved through the deepest human experiences, from longing to fate, and from the household to the battlefield. Norse religion lived through rituals, stories, charms, and sacred places. Norse belief was not organized around one holy book or one central institution. It lived in actions, places, spoken traditions, and inherited customs. People honored gods, ancestors, land spirits, and powers connected to fertility, protection, luck, and fate. Rituals might happen at farms, halls, graves, groves, springs, or special gathering sites. Offerings could mark seasonal turning points, family needs, public events, or moments of danger. Charms and amulets brought belief into daily life, worn close to the body or used in practical hopes for safety and success. Stories carried divine personalities into memory, making gods vivid through conflict, humor, loss, and cosmic drama. This religion was woven into the landscape and household, rather than separated from ordinary existence. A person might meet it in a pendant, a burial, a feast, a whispered formula, or a tale told at night. Its power came from being everywhere at once, not as a single system, but as a living pattern of meaning. Conversion to Christianity happened slowly across the Viking world. The shift from older Norse religion to Christianity was not instant or uniform. It unfolded through trade, politics, mission work, royal ambition, marriage, migration, and local choice. Some rulers adopted Christianity to connect with powerful European kingdoms or strengthen authority at home. Some communities accepted baptism while older customs continued in private or blended into new habits. In certain regions, change came through negotiation. In others, it involved pressure and conflict. Archaeology shows a complicated landscape where symbols and practices could overlap for a time. A person might live through decades when the religious future was not yet settled. Churches rose, burial customs changed, crosses appeared, and new ideas about salvation, kingship, and law entered society. Yet memory of the old gods remained in stories and poetry. Conversion was therefore not a simple replacement of darkness by light, or tradition by progress. It was a deep cultural transformation, uneven and human, shaped by power as much as belief. Some people wore crosses and Thor's hammers at the same time. During periods of religious change, symbols could overlap in ways that reveal uncertainty, adaptation, or practical openness. Archaeologists have found evidence that some people used Christian and Norse protective signs within the same cultural setting. A cross might signal baptism, alliance, trade connections, or faith in the new religion. A hammer pendant might still call on older ideas of protection, identity, or loyalty to inherited ways. Wearing both, or living among both, did not necessarily feel contradictory to everyone at the time. People often move through major cultural change gradually. They test new ideas while keeping old protections close. Such objects help us avoid imagining conversion as a single dramatic switch. Instead, we see households, craftspeople, traders, and leaders navigating a world where belief was also tied to politics, kinship, and safety. A small pendant could become a marker of transition. Against the chest, metal symbols carried the tension of an age where two sacred worlds met. Burial customs varied from cremation to chamber graves. There was no single Viking funeral. Practices differed by region, period, status, family tradition, and belief. Some people were cremated, with burned remains placed in urns or under mounds. Others were buried whole in graves lined with wood, stone, or earth. A few were placed in elaborate chambers with objects arranged around them. Some graves were modest, while others became monuments designed to be seen and remembered. This variety tells us that death was not treated as a fixed procedure across the Norse world. Families made choices that expressed status, affection, identity, ritual expectation, and local custom. Fire could transform the body and send it into another state. Earth burial could preserve the shape of social life around the dead. Grave construction itself required labor, which made burial a public act of investment. Through these practices, the living spoke about the dead without needing written words. The grave became a final statement about who someone had been and how they should be remembered. Grave goods reflected identity, status, belief, and family memory. Objects placed with the dead can be deeply revealing, although they must be interpreted carefully. A grave might contain weapons, jewelry, tools, household items, beads, riding gear, scales, or food remains. These things were not random clutter. They could signal social role, wealth, gender expectations, personal identity, or hopes about the afterlife. They might also reflect what the living wanted others to believe about the deceased. A person buried with fine goods may have belonged to a powerful family. A tool might point towards skill or daily work. A brooch or bead set might preserve the appearance someone held in life. Sometimes objects were old, repaired, imported, or symbolically charged, which adds further depth. Grave goods are powerful because they create a meeting point between archaeology and grief. We see what survived, but behind every item was a choice. Someone placed it there. Someone decided it mattered. In that moment, memory became material, and loss became arranged in the earth. The dead could be buried with ships, wagons, animals, or tools. Some Viking Age burials were astonishing acts of display. A ship might be drawn onto land and used as a grave, turning a vessel of movement into a chamber for the dead. Wagons and sledges could accompany high-status individuals, perhaps suggesting travel, rank, or ceremonial meaning. Animals were sometimes included, such as horses, dogs, birds, or livestock. These choices could express companionship, wealth, sacrifice, or ideas about journeying beyond death. Tools might speak of work, skill, and identity. The variety is striking because it shows that burial could become a staged world in miniature. The dead were not simply placed away from the living. They were surrounded by objects and beings that told a story. Such burials required enormous effort from the community. Wood had to be moved, earth piled, animals selected, possessions surrendered. That cost was part of the message. It proclaimed that this person mattered enough for the living to reshape the ground around their memory. Viking winter life depended on stored food and careful planning. Winter was one of the great tests of Norse life. Survival depended on decisions made months earlier, when grass could be cut, fish dried, animals managed, grain stored, and buildings repaired. A household that misjudged its needs could face hunger before spring returned. Food had to be protected from damp, rot, pests, and theft. Animals needed fodder, yet every mouth kept alive consumed precious supplies. People preserved meat and fish through drying, smoking, salting, fermenting, or freezing where conditions allowed. Dairy products could be transformed into longer-lasting forms. Fuel also mattered because warmth and cooking required steady access to wood, peat, or other local resources. Winter brought work indoors, but it did not bring idleness. Tools were repaired, textiles made, stories told, and plans laid for the next season. The drama of Viking life was not only found in storms and battles. It was also found in the storage room, where the difference between foresight and failure could decide who saw another spring. Salted fish helped sustain households through difficult months. Fish was one of the great safeguards of Norse survival because it could be caught in abundance when conditions were right, then preserved for times when fresh food was scarce. Along coasts, rivers, and fjords, people depended on cod, herring, salmon, and other species that could be dried, smoked, or salted. Salt was especially valuable because it slowed decay and made food travel farther. A preserved fish could feed a family when storms kept boats ashore, when fields lay frozen, or when livestock had to be protected rather than eaten. It also supported journeys, since crews needed food that would not spoil quickly at sea. The work behind it was demanding. Fish had to be cleaned, treated, hung, stored, and guarded from damp or pests. Yet the reward was stability. In a world where hunger could creep in quietly, preserved fish gave households a form of edible security. It was not glamorous treasure, but it could matter more than silver. Dairy products were preserved as butter, cheese, and sour whey. Milk was precious because it could be transformed into foods that lasted far beyond the moment of milking. Butter stored fat in a dense, useful form. Cheese concentrated nourishment into something portable. Sour whey could be drunk, used in cooking, or help preserve other foods. These transformations mattered because fresh milk spoiled quickly, especially without modern storage. A household that managed dairy well could stretch summer abundance into autumn and winter. The process required knowledge passed through repeated practice. People had to judge temperature, texture, sourness, timing, and cleanliness with their senses. Cows, goats, and sheep all contributed in different places, depending on climate and pasture. Dairy also shaped daily rhythms, because animals needed milking, fodder, and protection. The result was a food system built on care and adaptation. A bowl of curds or a store of butter was not simple rustic comfort. It was chemistry guided by experience, and it helped turn fragile milk into survival. Norse farms grew barley, oats, rye, beans, and vegetables. Farming in the Viking world demanded flexibility because soils, weather, and daylight varied widely across the regions where Norse people lived. Barley was especially important because it tolerated cooler climates and could be used for porridge, bread, and brewing. Oats and rye also helped households spread risk, while beans and garden vegetables added substance to the diet. People grew crops in a landscape that could be generous one year and punishing the next. A bad harvest might force difficult choices about animals, trade, or stored food. The farm was therefore a place of constant calculation. Seeds had to be saved. Fields had to be worked. Weeds, pests, rain, frost, and poor drainage all had to be managed without modern machines. Every successful harvest represented labor from many hands, and every meal from grain carried the memory of that work. Farming was not a quiet background to Viking adventure. It was the foundation beneath nearly everything else. Seaweed, berries, nuts, and herbs added variety to meals. The Norse diet was shaped not only by farms and animals, but also by careful gathering from the surrounding landscape. Seaweed could be collected along shorelines and used as food, fodder, fertilizer, or fuel in some places. Berries brought sweetness and vitamins during their short seasons. Nuts added fat and energy where they were available. Herbs could flavor food, support household remedies, or make familiar dishes feel less plain. These gathered foods remind us that survival depended on attentiveness. People had to know when each plant appeared, which places were worth visiting, and how to preserve what could not be eaten at once. Children may have learned these patterns by walking with older relatives, filling baskets, tasting, remembering, and watching the seasons closely. A meal brightened by berries or herbs might seem small beside tales of ships and battles, yet it reveals a deep relationship with place. Viking life was not only about taking from distant shores. It was also about noticing what grew nearby. Fishing shaped coastal life from Norway to the North Atlantic. For many Norse communities, the sea was not just a route of travel. It was a working landscape. Boats went out to catch fish that fed households, supported trade, and made settlement possible in places where farming alone was uncertain. Fishing demanded skill, patience, and courage because weather could turn quickly, and cold water gave little mercy. People used lines, nets, hooks, traps, and local knowledge of tides, spawning grounds, and seasons. Along Norway's coast and across the North Atlantic islands, fish connected families to wider economies as well as daily meals. Dried fish could move through trade, while fresh catches sustained local life. The work left marks in bones, tools, boat remains, and settlement patterns. It also shaped how people thought about risk. A good catch could bring relief. A lost boat could devastate a household. The ocean gave food and opportunity, but it demanded respect. Coastal Viking life was built on that dangerous bargain. Whales could provide meat, bone, oil, and precious opportunities. A whale was one of the greatest resources the sea could offer, especially when one stranded or was driven close enough to be taken. Such an event could transform a community's fortunes. The meat could feed many people. The bone could become tools, structural material, or crafted objects. Oil could be used for lamps, waterproofing, or other practical needs. Even the sheer size of the animal made it socially significant, because dividing the resource required rules, claims, and negotiation. People had to act quickly before spoilage set in, and the labor of processing was immense. A whale on shore was not simply food. It was urgency, wealth, cooperation, and potential conflict. In North Atlantic societies, rights to beached whales could matter enough to appear in law. That detail tells us how valuable they were. The animal's death became a rare opening in a hard economy, when the sea delivered abundance in a form no household could ignore. Seal hunting helped Greenland families survive on the edge. In Greenland, Norse settlers had to adapt to a world where ordinary European farming was stretched to its limits. Seals became especially important because they offered meat, fat, skins, and oil in an environment where winter was long and resources were uneven. Hunting them required knowledge of ice, shorelines, breathing holes, migration patterns, and dangerous water. It was not an easy supplement. It was skilled work that could decide whether a community endured. Seal products helped balance the limitations of cattle and sheep in a severe climate. Fat provided energy when calories mattered deeply. Skins and hides could serve practical needs. The hunt also tied Norse Greenlanders more closely to the Arctic environment than many people imagine. They were not simply transplanted farmers refusing to change. They adopted northern strategies while trying to preserve familiar ways of life. Their survival depended on blending old habits with new necessities, and seals stood at the center of that difficult balance. Horses carried status and played roles in travel and ritual. A horse, in the Viking world, was not a mere useful animal. It could be a sign of rank, mobility, and connection to deeper beliefs. Horses helped people travel across land, carry goods, herd animals, and link scattered farms or assembly sites. In a landscape of rough tracks and seasonal movement, owning a good horse could change a person's reach. Yet horses also appear in ritual and burial contexts, which suggests meanings beyond transport. Some were placed in graves, perhaps to honor the dead, display wealth, or connect with ideas of journeying beyond life. Horse fighting and ceremonial use are also known from parts of the Norse world, though practices varied. The animal combined practical strength with symbolic charge. It stood close to wealth because it required care, pasture, and protection. To arrive mounted could say something before a word was spoken. A horse gave speed, height, and presence, which made it valuable in both daily life and imagination. Dogs guarded farms, joined hunts, and sometimes entered graves. Dogs lived close to Norse households, where they could serve as guards, companions, hunting partners, and working animals. A farm needed warning against strangers, predators, and trouble near livestock. A dog's senses made it useful in ways no tool could replace. During hunts, dogs helped track and drive animals, turning human effort into coordinated pursuit. Yet their role was not only practical. Some were buried with people, which suggests affection, status, symbolism, or a belief that the animal belonged beside its owner even in death. The range of dog remains shows that Norse people kept animals of different sizes and types, suited to different tasks. Imagine the sound of barking around a longhouse, the warmth of a dog near a sleeping bench, or the tension of a hunting party following movement through brush. Dogs helped guard the edge between home and danger. Their presence reminds us that Viking life was shared with animals whose loyalty, usefulness, and companionship shaped ordinary days. Cats likely protected grain stores and traveled aboard ships. Cats probably earned their place by doing what cats have done for many human communities. They hunted mice and rats that threatened stored food, textiles, ropes, and cargo. Grain was precious, and a household could not afford to lose it to pests through the winter. On ships, rodents could damage supplies and equipment, so cats may have traveled with crews as living pest control. Their movement through Norse networks may even have helped spread certain lineages across northern Europe. Archaeological finds show cats in domestic and sometimes symbolic contexts, reminding us that these animals lived near people long before they became modern pets in the sentimental sense. Still, usefulness does not exclude attachment. A cat curled near warmth, stalking along beams, or slipping between storage areas would have been part of the household atmosphere. It belonged to the small, watchful life of the farm and ship. While warriors and traders claimed the dramatic stories, cats defended the food that made those stories possible. Viking houses were built from timber, turf, stone, or wattle. Norse builders used whatever the landscape could provide. In forested regions, timber formed strong frames, walls, and roofs. In places where wood was scarce, turf became an essential building material because it insulated well and could be cut from the ground itself. Stone might support foundations, walls, or hearths. Wattle, made from woven branches, could be packed with clay or other materials to create practical walling. This variety shows that Viking architecture was adaptive rather than uniform. A house in Norway, Iceland, Greenland, or England might look different because climate and resources demanded different answers. Building was communal and physical. Posts had to be raised, walls packed, roofs covered, floors prepared, and drainage considered. A successful house did more than stand upright. It held heat, resisted wind, sheltered people and goods, and survived repeated seasons. These homes were not primitive mistakes on the way to better buildings. They were intelligent responses to local conditions, shaped by hands that understood weather intimately. Longhouses could shelter whole families beneath one smoky roof. The longhouse brought many parts of life under one extended structure. Parents, children, relatives, workers, guests, and sometimes dependents could share the same building in different zones of activity. The space was arranged around work, warmth, sleeping, storage, and status. Raised benches along the sides provided places to sit by day and sleep by night. The central area held fire, movement, tools, and food preparation. Smoke could darken the rafters, preserve materials in strange ways, and make the air heavy. Privacy was limited, so social awareness mattered. Everyone heard arguments, stories, coughing, laughter, and the small sounds of bodies at rest. The household was therefore not just a family unit. It was an economic group, a social hierarchy, and a place where reputation began. To step into a longhouse was to enter the core of someone's world. Its roof held labor, warmth, authority, illness, hospitality, memory, and the daily negotiations of people living close together. Benches along the walls became seats, beds, and storage. Space, inside a Norse house, had to work hard. Benches along the walls were among the most useful features because they changed purpose through the day. During meals or gatherings, they provided seating. At night, they became sleeping platforms covered with skins, blankets, or bedding. Beneath or around them, families could store tools, clothing, containers, and personal goods. This flexible design helped a crowded building function without wasting room. It also reflected social order. Where someone sat could reveal rank, guest status, or household role. The best positions near warmth or honor were not accidental. A bench might look simple, but it shaped daily experience from waking to sleeping. It supported bodies, stored possessions, and organized relationships. Imagine a winter evening with people lined along the walls, firelight moving across faces, tools tucked nearby, and bedding waiting for later. The architecture itself encouraged shared life. In a longhouse, furniture was not separate from society. It quietly arranged it. Light came from hearth fires, oil lamps, and open doors. The inside of a Viking home could be dim by modern standards. Firelight from the hearth was central, but it flickered, smoked, and reached unevenly into the corners. Oil lamps added smaller points of brightness, often fueled by animal fat or other available oils. An open door could bring daylight, but it also brought cold, wind, insects, and interruption. Windows were limited, and glass was not ordinary household glazing in the way later periods would know it. This meant people worked with shadow as a normal part of life. Textile work, tool repair, cooking, storytelling, and social gathering all happened in shifting light. The senses adjusted. People knew the shape of their own home by touch, smell, sound, and memory as much as sight. That atmosphere changed how time felt. Sunrise mattered. Fire maintenance mattered. A lamp could extend work after dark, but fuel was never free. Light was precious because it had to be made. Textile work filled countless hours in ordinary Norse households. Cloth did not appear easily. It began with animals or plants, then passed through cleaning, carding, spinning, weaving, cutting, sewing, mending, and sometimes dyeing. Much of this work happened within households, and it consumed enormous time. Clothing wore out. Bedding needed repair. Sacks, bands, coverings, and other fabric goods were constantly required. Thread itself was a major product. A person could spin while listening, watching children, waiting, or talking, which made textile labor part of the background rhythm of life. Yet background does not mean unimportant. Cloth kept bodies warm, marked status, enabled travel, wrapped goods, and created trade value. The skill involved was substantial. Good weaving required planning, tension, pattern, and experience. A badly made garment could fail at the worst moment. A well-made one could last, protect, and impress. Textile work reminds us that Viking life depended on patience as much as daring. The age of ships and journeys was also an age of fiber, fingers, and endless thread. Needle cases, spindle whorls, and loom weights reveal hidden labor. Small objects found by archaeologists can open entire worlds of activity. A spindle whorl shows that thread was being made. Loom weights show that woven cloth took shape on upright looms. Needle cases point to sewing, repair, and garment care. These items are not dramatic at first glance, yet they reveal the labor that kept households alive and presentable. They also help restore attention to the people whose work was rarely celebrated in chronicles. A whorl turning at the end of the spindle may have produced the thread for a child's clothing, a cloak, a blanket, or a trading good. A loom weight helped hold tension while cloth slowly grew row by row. A needle repaired damage before it became ruin. These tools speak of repetition, skill, and responsibility. They show that history is not only made by the people whose names survive, it is also made by those who mended, spun, stitched, and kept ordinary life from falling apart. Viking traders used scales to weigh silver by value. Trade required trust, but trust often needed tools. Small balance scales allowed merchants to weigh silver carefully, whether it came as coins, ingots, palm rings, or fragments. This made exchange flexible across regions where different currencies and authorities overlapped. A stamped coin did not always matter for its face value. Its weight and purity could matter more. Traders carried weights that helped them measure payments, compare values, and avoid being cheated. The scene is easy to imagine. A merchant opens a pouch, sets a tiny balance, places silver on one side, and adjusts weights on the other while people watch closely. The act is calm, but the stakes are real. Fair measurement could build reputation. Fraud could start conflict. Scales showed the sophistication of Viking commerce. These were not people merely swapping goods by guesswork. They understood value as something that could be tested, divided, and negotiated. In a noisy market, a little balance could turn distant silver into precise agreement. Hack silver turned treasure into flexible, everyday currency. A bracelet, coin, or ingot could become payment by being cut into smaller pieces. This practice made silver adaptable in a world where trade did not depend on one standardized coinage. The person could pay according to weight, trimming value to match a deal. The result was practical, but also striking. Beautiful objects might be chopped apart because their metal value mattered more than their original form. A decorated arm ring could become fragments in a pouch. A foreign coin could lose its identity as money from a distant ruler and become simply silver. This tells us that wealth was mobile and negotiable. It also helps explain the mixed contents of hoards, where pieces from different regions sit together as stored value. Hack silver made commerce possible across cultural boundaries, because metal could speak a language many traders understood. It reduced distant empires, ornaments and gifts into measurable substance. Treasure was not always kept whole for admiration. Sometimes it was broken so life could move. Some Norse merchants reached the markets of Byzantium and Baghdad. Norse trade routes extended far beyond the northern seas. By following rivers, portages and steppe connections, travelers could reach the wealthy worlds of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Islamic caliphates. These journeys were long, risky, and full of cultural encounters. Merchants had to deal with tolls, local rulers, languages, currencies, and shifting political conditions. In return, they gained access to silver, silk, spices, wine, glass, and luxury goods that carried immense prestige back home. Byzantium dazzled with imperial ceremony and urban scale. Baghdad stood within a world of scholarship, craftsmanship, and extraordinary commercial reach. For a Scandinavian traveler, such places must have seemed almost overwhelming. Yet finds in the north prove that contact was real. Objects and coins traveled back along the same routes, settling into graves, hoards, and workshops. These connections show that Viking life belonged to a much larger medieval world. The north was not isolated. It was stitched into networks that reached towards some of the richest cities on earth. Varangian warriors served emperors inside Constantinople's imperial guard. Some Scandinavians and other northern warriors entered the service of the Byzantine emperors as part of the famed Varangian Guard. This elite force became known for loyalty, physical presence, and formidable fighting ability. To serve in Constantinople was to stand inside one of the most powerful and splendid courts of the medieval world. These men guarded palaces, joined campaigns, witnessed imperial ritual, and lived among languages and customs far from home. Service could bring pay, status, and treasure. Some returned north with wealth and stories that must have sounded astonishing beside a Scandinavian hearth. The journey itself was remarkable, passing through river routes and foreign territories before reaching the great city. The Varangian story reveals a different side of Viking ambition. Not every northern fighter sought only plunder or land. Some sold their skill to emperors and became part of a global military world. Their axes and oaths connected fjords and farms to marble halls, golden mosaics, and the politics of empire. Harold Bluetooth gave his name to modern wireless technology. The name Bluetooth in modern devices comes from a Viking Age king, Harold Bluetooth, who ruled in Denmark and is remembered for helping unite parts of Denmark and Norway while supporting Christianity. Engineers later borrowed his name for a technology meant to unite different devices through wireless communication. The connection is playful, but surprisingly fitting. Just as Harold became associated with bringing separate groups under one rule, Bluetooth technology was designed to help different electronic devices communicate with one another. The familiar symbol even combines runic forms based on his initials. This is one of the strangest afterlives of the Viking Age. A medieval king's nickname now appears in phones, headphones, cars, speakers, and computers across the world. Most people tap the symbol without realizing they are touching a tiny echo of Norse history. It shows how the past can survive in unexpected places, not only in museums and sagas, but in the invisible signals moving through a modern room. Viking art twisted animals into elegant knots and gripping patterns. Norse artists filled objects with creatures that seemed to stretch, bite, twist, and weave through one another. Animal ornament appeared on brooches, weapons, ships, stones, woodwork, and metal fittings. These designs were not simple decoration. They required control, imagination, and a deep sense of pattern. Bodies could become ribbons. Heads could grip borders. Limbs could loop into forms that pull the eye around an object again and again. Different styles developed over time, each with its own rhythm and character. Some feel dense and gripping. Others become more graceful and flowing. The art suits a world fascinated by transformation, power, and living forms. A small object could hold a whole tangle of motion. A carved panel could seem almost alive under changing light. Viking art reminds us that these people did not only value function, they loved surfaces charged with energy. Even practical items could become places where animals, myth, status, and craftsmanship met in a dance of lines. Ship prows may have carried carved beasts to frighten enemies. The image of a ship approaching with a carved creature at its prow captures something essential about Viking display. A beast head could make a vessel look more than human, as if it were a sea monster carrying armed men toward the shore. Such carvings may have been used on certain ships to project power, protect the crew, or intimidate those who saw them coming. Wood rarely survives, so the full range of prow decoration is hard to know, but art and later descriptions suggest that animal forms mattered. Dragons, serpents, and gripping beasts belonged to a visual world where danger and beauty intertwined. Imagine standing on a coastline as a long hull approached, oars moving in rhythm, sail above it, and a carved head staring forward. The psychological effect could be powerful before anyone landed. A ship was already a machine of movement. With a beast at the front, it became a message. Fear could arrive before the crew did. Board games like Full sharpened strategy during quiet hours. Not every Viking Age contest involved weapons. Board games offered challenge, entertainment, and mental training during evenings, voyages, and long indoor seasons. Full and related games used unequal sides, often with a king piece trying to escape while attackers closed in. That structure created a tense battle of movement, sacrifice, defense, and prediction. Players had to think ahead, read patterns, and lure opponents into mistakes. Game pieces have been found in graves and settlements, sometimes made from bone, glass, amber, or other valued materials. Their presence suggests that strategy was enjoyed as a social skill. A game could pass time, but it could also display intelligence. Around a board, people could compete without bloodshed, test patience, and practice the kind of planning useful in leadership or conflict. The appeal is easy to understand. In a world of risk, a small board created a controlled battlefield. Every move mattered, but the dead could be reset for another round. Skiing and skating helped people move through snow and ice. Winter travel did not simply stop when snow covered paths and ice sealed water. In parts of the Norse world, people used skis, skates, sledges, and other methods to keep moving through frozen landscapes. Skis could help hunters, messengers, and travelers cross deep snow more efficiently than walking. Bone skates, used on ice, allowed people to glide across frozen surfaces with pulls or pushing motions. These technologies turned harsh conditions into routes. A lake that blocked summer travel could become a winter road. Snow that swallowed footsteps could be crossed with the right equipment and skill. Movement through winter mattered for hunting, visiting, trading, gathering news, and maintaining ties between scattered farms. It also required balance, strength, and experience. The image of Viking life should include not only ships on open water, but also people moving over white landscapes with practical grace. They did not merely endure winter. They learned to travel through it. Norse medicine mixed practical remedies with charms and belief. Healing in the Viking world drew from many kinds of knowledge. People used herbs, wound care, splints, cleaning, warmth, rest, and practical experience with injuries from work, travel, childbirth, and conflict. At the same time, Illness could be understood through forces beyond the visible body, so charms, prayers, runes, and ritual actions might accompany treatment. This mixture was not unusual for the medieval world. When pain was frightening and causes were uncertain, people used every available tool. Some remedies may have had real physical effects. Others offered comfort, structure, and hope. Healers needed observation and confidence. They had to decide when to bind, cut, wash, warm, cool, feed, or wait. Archaeological evidence of healed injuries shows that people sometimes survived serious trauma with care from others. Medicine was therefore not simply superstition, nor was it modern science. It was a living blend of experiment, tradition, belief, and compassion, shaped by people trying to keep bodies alive in a dangerous world. Archaeologists find healed injuries that reveal survival and care. Bones can tell stories that written records ignored. A fracture that healed shows that a person lived long enough after injury for the body to repair itself. That often means someone helped them. A broken leg, damaged skull, or injured arm could make farming, travel, fighting, or feeding oneself extremely difficult. Survival may have required food, shelter, protection, and time away from hard labor. Healed wounds therefore reveal not only violence or accident, but care. They show communities responding to vulnerability. Some individuals lived with chronic damage, worn joints, missing teeth, or old trauma, yet continued long enough for those marks to settle into bone. Archaeologists can read these traces like a second biography. They cannot tell us every name or feeling, but they can show endurance. A healed injury is a quiet form of evidence. It says that the past was not made only of sudden death. It also contained recovery, patience, assistance, and people who were allowed to remain part of the household, despite weakness or pain. Dental grooves may have marked identity, status, or intimidation. Some Viking Age male skeletons have teeth with deliberate grooves filed into them. The marks are usually horizontal and appear to have been made with care, not by accident. Their meaning remains debated, which makes them especially intriguing. They may have signaled group identity, warrior status, trade affiliation, personal style, or an attempt to appear more frightening. Pigment could possibly have darkened the lines, making them visible when the person spoke or smiled. Whatever the purpose, the practice shows that the body itself would become a surface for social meaning. Teeth are intimate and permanent. Altering them requires intention, pain tolerance, and a reason strong enough to endure both. These grooves remind us that Viking appearance could involve choices we do not fully understand. They sit at the edge of evidence, close enough to touch but difficult to explain. A small line in enamel opens a large question about belonging, performance, and how people wanted to be seen. Viking migration was driven by land hunger, trade, ambition, and politics. There was no single reason people left Scandinavia during the Viking Age. Some sought farmland because inheritance and local power made opportunity limited at home. Others followed trade routes, military leaders, family networks, or rumors of wealth. Political pressure could push people outward when kings grew stronger or rivals became dangerous. Younger sons, ambitious chieftains, skilled sailors, craftspeople, settlers, and fighters all had different motives. Migration was not one wave with one purpose. It was a collection of choices made under changing conditions. A person might leave to raid and later settle. The trader might marry abroad. A family might move to an island because land seemed available. A leader might cross the sea to carve out authority where old rules were weaker. This complexity makes the Viking Age more human. Movement came from need and desire together. People were pulled by possibility and pushed by limits. Their journeys reshaped places because migration carried language, law, tools, animals, stories, and memory. Climate shaped where Norse families could farm, sail, and settle. Weather was not scenery in Viking life. It was a force that decided what could be planted, when ships could leave, whether animals survived, and where communities could endure. A slight shift in temperature or storm pattern could affect hay growth, sea ice, pasture quality, and sailing seasons. In the North Atlantic, these pressures were especially sharp. Iceland, Greenland, and the Northern Islands required careful adaptation to short summers and unpredictable conditions. Favorable periods could encourage settlement and travel. Harsher phases could strain food systems, isolate communities, and make old strategies fail. Climate did not act alone, because politics, trade, disease, and human decisions mattered too. Yet it set the boundaries within which those choices were made. A farm was possible only if grass could grow. A voyage was possible only if wind and water allowed it. The Viking world expanded through courage and skill, but always under the sky's authority. The weather was a partner, a judge, and sometimes an enemy. Viking life was not one story, but 1,000 connected worlds. To understand the Viking Age, we have to let go of the single image. There were raiders, but also farmers, poets, traders, craft workers, healers, enslaved people, settlers, children, law speakers, and sailors. There were smoky homes and crowded towns, Arctic hunts and imperial courts, carved pendants and broken silver, old gods and new churches, harsh winters and daring voyages. Some lives were full of power. Others were marked by labor, dependence, or loss. The same culture could produce exquisite art and brutal violence. It could preserve family memory and poetry and sell human beings in markets. That contradiction is not a flaw in the story. It is the story. Viking life was wide, restless, and deeply varied, connected by ships, speech, kinship, ambition, and exchange. Each object we uncover adds another thread. Each place name, grave, tool, and saga opens another door. The wonder lies in realizing that the Viking world was never simple. It was a moving web of human lives. And so, we come to the end of our journey through Viking life. We have crossed cold northern seas in longships built for speed and shallow water. We have stepped into smoky longhouses where fires burned at the center of family life, and winter stories carried old names through the dark. We have followed traders along river routes toward silver, silk, and faraway cities. We have seen farms on windswept islands, carved runes on ordinary objects, and ships drawn onto land to carry the dead into memory. The Viking world was never just one thing. It was not only raids, weapons, or legends. It was wool spun into sails, bread baked on hot stones, laws spoken beneath open skies, and children learning the work of survival by watching older hands. It was a world of courage and hardship, beauty and ambition, belief and change. 1,000 connected lives, moving across water, land, and time. Now, let those images soften. Let the ships drift farther from shore. Let the hearth grow low. Let the voices in the hall become warm and distant, like a story fading at the edge of sleep. There is nothing more you need to follow now. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing slow. Let the weight of the day fall away, piece by piece, until only stillness remains. If you enjoyed this journey, you are warmly invited to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. And if you happen to still be awake, there should be another video waiting on the screen, ready to carry you into another calm corner of history. But for now, let the night gather around you. Let your mind rest. Let the old northern world slip gently into the dark. Sleep well, and good night.